So welcome to the channel, guys. This is a really interesting webinar, investor webinar for Ally Robotics and Miso Robotics, two of the leaders in the space. There's two CEOs going to come together and discuss the progress of both their fundraising rounds in 2022. It's September. If you're watching this in the future, though, you can learn a lot about the robotic space and these two companies. It's going to be fascinating. There's going to be a Q&A. There's probably going to be some videos and some amazing insights. I've done a lot of coverage. I've invested in both of these companies. I've been invested in Miso Robotics since 2020, and Ally Robotics I invested in a few weeks ago. I'm really excited for this webinar, so make sure to watch the whole of it. It's going to be really gripping, really interesting, and they're going to show us how they're going to grow. Only 10 seconds left, so stay tuned. If you haven't already, like and subscribe, hit the bell notification for more awesome videos like this. We're about to get started.
Hey, good afternoon or good evening, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us. We are just about to get started. I'm going to give everyone just a few moments to get logged in here. We have quite a few registrants, so we're going to give folks about a minute or so here to get logged on, and we'll get started.
Look at these arms. They're so cool. Ally and Miso Robotics together. Awesome. And they've got Mitch Tolson there in his office and Mike B. I don't know if that's his home office.
Okay, it looks like we've leveled off in terms of people logging in. First, I just want to say thanks very much for joining us. My name is Justin Williams from Waymaker Labs, and I'm thrilled today to be joined by Ally Robotics founder and CEO Mitch Tolson and Miso Robotics CEO Mike Bell. Before we get started, I want to share some quick information to make sure everyone can get the most out of today's event. In a moment, we're going to do a quick presentation with Mike and Mitch, which we'll follow with a Q&A session. You can submit questions at any time during today's event by clicking the questions tab in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mitch to get us started.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here, and thank you for taking the time to join us today. I'm Mitch Tolson from Ally Robotics, and Ally Robotics is on a mission to create robotics for anyone, anywhere. And joining me today, I'm super excited to have Mike Bell, CEO of Miso Robotics. In just a moment here, Mike will introduce himself and share a little bit more about his amazing journey and the progress Miso has been making and their opportunities ahead of them. I'll then also share a little bit more about the origin of Ally Robotics and how we're taking a modern approach to automation. I'll show some video demonstrations, and we'll wrap up answering your guys' questions that you have of us. Mike Bell, welcome. Happy to be talking with you today.
Thank you,
A
Mitch.
little bit more about Miso?
Yeah. Thank you. Glad to be here. I'm delighted for the invitation, and welcome to all the people joining us for this webinar. Let me just we'll kick off the webinar by telling you a little bit about Miso and the opportunity before us. Quite simply, we design, manufacture, and sell AI-powered automation products for the restaurant industry. So it's kind of a mouthful, and you may have come to know us through Flippy, which is our kind of flagship product. But we talk more about Flippy in a moment. By way of quick background, the company has been around for 6 years. 5 of those years have been in full R&D mode. This year, 2022, is the first year where we actually entered a stage of commercialization, where we're actually, as we sit here today and speak, there are robots being manufactured in Ohio that are coming off production lines and being installed in live restaurants, and they're cooking food for consumers. And so we're early in our journey, and I'm really excited to be telling you more about Miso. Mitch, if you'll flip to the next page, Mitch or Justin, what we really should probably kind of start off by acknowledging is the state of things in the labor market, in the restaurant labor market in particular, okay? Before the pandemic, there was a labor gap. It was a labor problem. Currently, today, fast forward today, it's commonly referred to within the restaurant industry as the labor crisis. It is the single largest problem facing the restaurant industry, and there's no close second. Furthermore, it's a problem that has no real other solution looming other than automation. So right now today, there's anywhere between 500,000 and 1 million jobs in the
Jesus.
US alone that are unfilled. And that number changes all the time because retention is a very, very difficult problem within the industry as well. So what's going on in the industry is not just a pandemic related phenomena. It predated the pandemic for years. It got accelerated and exacerbated by all the changes that happened to the society and this job market brought by the pandemic. Today, you have some restaurants, they simply cannot open because they cannot achieve minimum staffing levels. The large majority of restaurants that do open cannot achieve peak sales capacity because they're understaffed perennially, potentially, or especially during peak hours. And so Miso enters this phase of commercialization with more than just tailwinds in its back. Our timing could not be better, and the industry and the kind of economy at large is hurrying us along to really come to the rescue and save these the problems that are vexing the restaurant industry.
Yeah, hundreds of thousands of
And the
jobs.
restaurant industry in particular, flipping the page, is unique in its size. Now you hear that all the time. You kind of hear about how big an industry is, and it's kind of commonly referred to as TAM, the total addressable market. The TAM in the restaurant industry is astonishingly large. Okay, there's over 1 million restaurants in the U.S. alone, and that spans all the way into food courts, food trucks, commissaries, restaurants within hotels and grocery stores. It's just this crazy, crazy large market. And when you pull back even further and look at the market as a whole globally, the numbers get really, really big. There's like 20 million plus restaurants globally. You count kind of the largest span of numbers available. And you look at the customers that Miso is aiming to sell to, the logos on the bottom, they're not our customers today, but the customers, the logos represented at the bottom of the screen, each represent anywhere between 5,000 or 6,000 upwards to 20,000 locations per each logo. In this, when you add these up, this doesn't include the large portion of independent restaurants, which make up about 40% of this group. It's just independent one-off restaurants. So we're looking at this enormous addressable market with no other solution to this existential challenge of the labor crisis. And in comes Miso. And Miso, for whatever reason, how the world unfolded, has no direct competitor doing what we're doing. And so we're largely being looked at in the industry saying, can you hurry up and solve this problem for us? And we're doing so. And so when these companies
Blended might be
come and call on us, by the way, I should
maybe
point out that Miso has, we've got 120 people in the company, about 90 of them are engineers. We have exactly 0 salespeople, and we spend exactly $0 on demand generation or marketing. So we get a ton of PR, we get a ton of press. You may see ads for us for soliciting investment, but the company essentially has these brands coming to it. That we host them here. And so, Justin, if you flip the next page, I want to give you an idea of what the opportunity looks like and how the customers we sell to buy. There's 4 stages outlined here. The first stage is initial engagement, where we're on the phone talking, and again, all of our demand is inbound. They're calling us. We talk to these brands and kind of tell them what we're doing, and they're all keeping regular tabs with us and in regular communications with my team and I. Right now, in this category, this column, stage 1, we have around 7,000 locations, actually a little more. And then once they kind of look at the metrics and hear more what we're doing, what they typically do is they get in a plane, they come here, and they come to our robotics lab in Pasadena, California. We have 20,000 square feet, and then we've got a whole wall of robots making food kind of day in and day out. These brands will observe the robots. They'll look at the food being cooked. We will show them metrics in terms of how fast the food is cooked, what the throughput is, what the accuracy is, and what the cost is, what the overall metrics are. That generally leads to the next phase, was the pilot. They want to see these restaurant brands want to see this robot operate in their environment, either in a test kitchen or in a live restaurant environment. The logos that are in this category, this pilot, these are only the brands that have agreed to be made public. It's completely the prerogative of our customers and whether they would like to be remain. Their piloting of our robots is to remain undisclosed, or whether it's publicized. We respect their rights, their wishes, whatever. It's all good for us. But the ones that you're seeing here are a small percentage of the pilots that we have underway. Once these pilots run in a restaurant environment, it then generally leads to a rollout. Cali Burger was our first customer, and White Castle was our first large chain. White Castle went through this whole process, and after they piloted for about 90 days, agreed to buy 100 robots from us, and we're in the process of rolling those robots out now and installing them in various White Castle locations. So in the months ahead, what you're going to see from Miso is continued movement of more brands appearing on the sheet and more brands going from
300K
right
a month
as we continue to scale.
White Castle.
We're going to be at this for many, many years. It's a really big problem. We're solving it very compellingly, and we're very early days in terms of this customer journey. The last slide I'll show you is just kind of highlights our main product, Flippy, and this is a good segue to talking about Ally Robotics and the technology that Mitch is developing with his team. The arm that we're using in this, in our current iteration of Flippy, is not an Ally Robotic arm. That arm, Ally Robotics, is rapidly developing their arm. What you see here is kind of pictures of Flippy 2, and Flippy 2 is a breakthrough solution. It is a fry station solution. It installs over a customer's pre-existing fry station. We don't sell this robot outright. We provide it for $3,500 a month, roughly. So think of it as a robot as a service subscription that comes with hardware, software, kind of everything included. Restaurants immediately see an ROI. Flippy gets installed overnight the next morning, and it fits in very universal design. It fits in most fast food QSR restaurants. It takes over cooking the next day, and generally the places that work about 1.5 full-time employees. Those employees go elsewhere in the operation to help produce more food and sell more food. So the ROI is incredibly strong for our customers because we're able to install this with no real significant cost up front. $3,500 is cost less than the equivalent labor component for kind of doing this similar work. So it's an immediate savings month one and ongoing. So this is kind of a high-level flyby of the product. It sets the stage for giving you a context for one of the applications that Ally Robotics arm will be put to use in. We're proud to be partnering with Ally. We're really excited what they're bringing to market. And Mitch, I'm going to give you a little bit we get all the time. Can you please hurry up?
Thanks, Mike. It's been an awesome journey. I mean, this is amazing. I actually have one back there. It's pretty sweet. And I've really enjoyed partnering with all of the Miso Robotics team. They're a group of amazing engineers. Mike and the team he's built an awesome team. And that's where when I remember the conversation, Mike, we had of, hey, Mitch, can you come help me? And we decided to really take on this journey of figuring out how to build a better robotic arm. And when we decided to form Ally Robotics, and so I started first and foremost of how am I going to move fast and help not just Mike but other customers that are in a similar situation of kind of modernizing automation. And so I started by building an awesome team. Combined, we have over 275 years of experience, industry experience. And that has really helped us from just a startup standpoint, avoid a lot of the pitfalls that you might see today. And we're able to make decisions fast, engineer more of the right type of solution, listen to customer needs and requirements quickly, and materialize those into a development plan that is going to produce a product that we believe and we hear that will really help modernize the industry. And when I started out, I my core, I'm an engineer, and I really analyzed what are these robotic arms doing today, and my synopsis of that is really it's kind of like when you walk into a house that was built in 1980 and it hasn't been renovated, and it just needs some modernization. And I see a lot of these copycats kind of copying this classic industrial robotic arm design. And this materialized into things where working with Miso, listening to them and some of Ally's customers, these customers, they face problems with this large control box, where specifically in quick serve restaurants, space is very prime, and trying to fit that thing somewhere is difficult. Also, these arms, when I started doing looking at them from an engineering lens, is they're not really designed for serviceability, and so that translates to longer downtimes. And it's all about customer throughput and actually doing the job that we have these robots do for us. I also saw that these industrial robotic arms, they're chasing a spec of repeatability, specifically plus or minus 0.01 millimeters of repeatability, and that's less than a thickness of a human hair. When I look at, if we're trying to automate everyday human tasks that will help with fill that later labor shortage, 1 millimeter is good enough. And so I think back in my experience of when I was laying bricks or a carpenter or any other type of, or just kind of holistically classify as a blue collar job, that I really go back to, it's, you want to find the right tool for the right job. And then when I look at going past just the hardware, I took a look at, well, how are companies deploying this automation? What are the other barriers? Well, oftentimes it takes a very skilled technician or a robotics engineer to program these robots to actually do something of value, and that ultimately costs these companies large capital or valuable time within their projects. And so I really asked the question of, well, there must be a better way. And I became convinced of this. So we did a couple of things. We jettisoned the control box. That's totally gone. And now it's just what you see in our arm is the arm. We also moved to this endoskeleton based design rather than where a lot of the robot arms today are using more of an exoskeleton. So I can approximate that to, if you imagine a human arm is an endoskeleton, your skeletal structure. So what this allows us to do is, I looked at the challenge of taking an industrial robot arm and applying it to different applications. And there's a lot of friction there. Typically you have to order a different part number. And so using an endoskeleton design, we came up with the concept of robot skins. So now we can use NSF 169 cleanability and IP 65 rated skins for food automation, or we can go to a soft compliance skin that could add a layer of safety within certain types of applications. We also created a very modular architecture so that not only does that help with serviceability, but it also improves manufacturing and the speed of manufacturing, simplicity of manufacturing, ultimately helping to lower the cost of our arm. We also did something where a lot of these robotic arms, they're using AC stepper motors that also is why they need that external control box. Instead, we went to a modern architecture of we're creating our own actuator that's based off of a quasi-direct drive actuator. And then we took that and we created some novel joints so that our structure is mechanically coupled. And all this to say really is, you could tell I'm an engineer at heart, is that we've just taken modern, learnings and technology and really kind of reinvented what a robotic arm can be. And then on top of all that, I again go back to, well, like I mentioned, when I was laying bricks or whatever, I learned how to do that task by somebody showing me how to do that. So we really wanted to improve how you can train and program our robots. And so we've done just that. We threw in over 384 compute cores into our arm. So now we can handle all of our AI workloads right within the arm. And now what that means is anyone can come up to this arm and move their arm, and that's now training a behavior that would otherwise take oftentimes several engineers, several weeks to go and program. And so, when I take all of these kind of amalgamate into a robotic arm and working with Miso, we start to look at, well, what are the benefits here? And Mike, if you want to, help kind of walk through this a little bit, I'll start off by saying it's certainly a cost reduction. It translates to less service trips. The overall installation, because we also reduce the weight of the arm, it only takes one person to install this arm. And we also, are able to manufacture this arm at high volume with relatively low effort. And that will, we believe, will help with Miso's volume and their deployment schedule. Anything you want to add here, Mike?
Yeah, I think just kind of this data is super helpful, and it kind of lets the world look at it and go, okay, the before and after, the old and new. But when you pull back and look at what's going on with robotics in the world today, these robotic arms are being placed in within our lifetimes, all the warehouses in the world, most of the restaurants in the world, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's this proliferation of robotic arms. But when you look at the robotic arms themselves, their legacy, they're super heavy. They have old school technology. These controller boxes look like they belong in the Apollo 13 kind of era, technology. And so it's really been that the market is right for the next generation of this technology that you're bringing.
Thanks, Mike. So we started this company 9 months ago, and I mentioned before that I built a strong team. That's where I started. In 9 months, you see this on the left there. You see a picture of a little bit earlier version of Flippy, and then on the right you see a Ally arm. Not only did we build the robotic arm in 9 months, designed it, built it, and now we have it actually performing behaviors that are close to what would be within Flippy. The other thing too is that to train this motion, you see in this little video here, it took us less than 10 minutes start to finish. And it didn't take somebody getting within a safety zone to grab the arm and move it around. It wasn't some software engineer coding away. It was literally just, as I learned how to frame a house, swing a hammer, whatever, it's just us showing the robot what we want to do. And then we can then go and replay that same behavior. So then what we did is, there we go. Okay, so you see Jen here. This is what we started with. We started with almost inadvertently creating what we would call a robot sign language. How can we visually show and program the robot what we want it to do? And here you see her controlling each of the different joints with different sorts of gestures. And then once she, programs a certain motion, then that can be saved and you can replay that over and over again. So this could be building a boba drink, it could be cooking French fries, or it could be silvering Christmas ornaments because nobody wants to do that, chemical-based type of job. We also, took it a step further and said, hey, wait, if, in a collaborative environment, let's say a construction site or quick serve restaurant type environment, there's people around. So we want this to be safe intrinsically. So in our actuators, we can sense the torque of any induced loads onto our arm and operate. Really what that means is operate in a safe environment. And then, you could kind of see James in the background here controlling different motions of the arm, which, is so cool, but we want to even simplify it even further. And so that's where what we did is we said, what if we can just active shadow somebody and it'll move that arm and follow that same motion. So that's what I'll replay it again here. So if you watch James's arms, both the arms they're moving simultaneously, shadowing him. So it's not requiring any type of there's not, James isn't having to write any code here to do this motion. He's not having handheld joysticks or anything like that. And what this ultimately means is that we're working to, as I mentioned earlier, build robots for anyone in any type of application that doesn't have that high barrier to entry, that is a lower cost solution. And so Right now, we are in a fundraise. Ally Robotics is. Our fundraise closes tomorrow. Might want to talk a little bit more about this, but Miso has written Ally Robotics a $30 million letter of intent for purchasing robotic arms. Ally has also obtained, when we look at we believe that it's not just about outright purchasing these arms, but we ask the question of what if we could rent or lease these arms? So we have a robotics as a service model where somebody can come in and just pay a small monthly fee versus the upfront large cost to obtain an arm, and then they can go and program this arm to do whatever it is that they want to do. So we have a couple of companies totaling $400,000 a month in robotic services. So far in our fundraise, we've now raised over $3 million. So
Amazing.
Thank you for all of those investors, 2,000 of you, and still growing. And so now I just want to, hand over and switch over to Q&A, and Mike and I are really looking forward to answering any of you guys' questions. Thank you.
Our last one.
Thanks, Mitch. Thanks, Mike. Really great information there. And thanks everyone for submitting questions. We have a bunch of really great ones. I'm going to start with this one from Carlson. How does Ally plan to differentiate its robotic arm products from existing robotic arm manufacturers like Fanuc and the others that are out there?
Yeah, good question. So I went into a lot of the more kind of engineering technical detail there. It starts with, two things. We took a new approach to how a robotic arm is built and designed. So, we're not using AC stepper motors. We're not using, we're not using strain wave gear reducers that are large, expensive, and inefficient. We're using much higher efficient planetary-based gear actuators. So it's really about, from a technology standpoint, we've created an arm that is more designed for everyday type of applications. It's really the right tool for the right job. And then we're also focusing on how people can train and program these arms from a software lens of really making it so that anyone can train these. You don't have this large dependent. You don't have to, spend several years in college learning how to program robots. If you know how to just show somebody how to do a task, you could show our arm how to do that task.
It might help just if I give kind of a customer's view of why.
Yeah,
what's different for us. Okay. Just kind of to bullet point maybe what Mitch outlined, but from a customer's perspective, significantly easier to program and train. Saves Miso a tremendous amount of resources by its just programmability. It's got more functionality, so it's easier to service. It's lighter. It does not contain a big, heavy controller box. It's quicker to scale in manufacturing. It's more reliable, got longer lifetime, and it's going to be less expensive. So oftentimes when you're making technology purchases, there's some compromises. You win some things, you lose some things. This is a win across the board, up and down. And we're forecasting such incredible demand going forward. It's really easy for us to kind of just look at what Mitch is doing and commit to purchasing a very large percentage of the units that are coming off his first production phases. It's going to be our robot arm of choice.
Thanks, Mike. A related question here from David. Does Miso plan to use the Mimic software from Ally, or will you guys be using your own software?
Yeah, we will be integrating what Mitch is building and integrating that with our core software technology.
Oh, that's cool.
Got it. Thanks. Another question here from Carlson. If an operational manufacturable Ally robotic arm prototype exists, or does not exist, when is that expected?
Okay, so I think I'm trying to unpack what they mean by that question. So a couple things. We're a 9-month-old company. We have built several prototypes. I'll call these engineering units that we're using to further design and development. But I think the real question is, when can we expect these from production? When will we have production units available? And that'll be end of 2023.
Got it. Thanks, Mitch. Mike, can you give us a little context about switching from the current robotic arm that you're using to Ally? Is there any kind of new integration work that needs to be done for the Flippy product line?
Yeah, but the good news is we're already started. We're doing that in concert with Mitch's team now. So it doesn't represent like this big slog of new work that's coming down the pipe. So we'll continue to use our current robotic arm manufacturer. We're going to honor those relationships. But as I said, as his technology becomes available, we're going to take the first ones, and we're already working with this team to make sure that they work day one.
Thanks. A little bit of a different vein of question here. Mike, when you're talking to potential customers, is the conversation around replacing human workers, or is there another way that these big restaurant chains are thinking about automation?
Yeah, it's never about replacing workers, either in our description or in reality. When we put a robot into a restaurant environment, there simply are not enough employees to send any home. That's just not realistic in today's labor market. So what happens across the board in every case, unequivocally, is the people that were formerly working that fry station move over to the drive-through or to take orders or to do food prep or handle delivery orders. And what happens is the overall capacity of the restaurant goes up because they've got just simply more manpower / robot power. So they generate more sales.
Thanks, Mike. And Mitch, I know you have your eye on some other labor challenged industries. Is there anything you wanted to add about the replacing human workers?
Certainly, yeah. So if I look in the construction industry, an industry I grew up in, right now today, over 650,000 jobs are just vacant. They can't find people to do these jobs. And a lot of these are, hey, remove the garbage off the floor because that helps us with just overall efficiency of building a new, commercial site or whatever. And in manufacturing, as more companies reshore back to the US and build, manufacturing plants here, it's expected that over the next 10 years, 3.5 million jobs will be needed to fill those roles. And then it's further projected that only 1.5 million of those will be able to, there's actually people that will fill those. Even a 2 million job deficit. And my perspective is, hey, if we have automation, or let's say a low-cost, attainable robotic arm that's really easy to train, those 1.5 million people could train robots to fill the other 2 million roles.
Thanks, Mitch. Question here from Timothy: is Ally strictly doing business with Miso, or are you pursuing business with other companies?
Certainly not just Miso. I look at Miso. I think Mike can speak more about the relationship between Miso and Ally. But Ally, we have roughly, we have a handful of engagements every week of outreaches of potential customers. Right now, we're tracking 9 customers that are closer from helping us develop our product, customer feedback, etc. And those range from laying 3-tab on roofs for building houses to silvering Christmas ornaments. So we just look at Miso as a great partner to help us get started.
Yeah, just to be clear, because some of the questions have come in, to clarify the relationship. So Miso and Ally are 2 separate companies. They're separate and distinct. So Miso is a customer of Ally's. Miso is also an investor in Ally. Okay, so the technology we found so compelling, we actually seed invested in the company and are so very much invested in its success. But we acknowledge it's a standalone company. It's going to have a lot of customers. There's going to be broad scale demand for the products that Ally is producing, and we love that. We want them to succeed, obviously.
Thank you.
Thanks. Barney wants to know, Mitch, have you applied for NSF certification?
We will apply for all of our certifications starting that process end of this calendar year. And that will give us plenty of time to pass not only NSF, but also all of the FCC and UL certifications as well.
Thanks. Question here from Jonathan about the Ally robotic arm. Are there cameras embedded in the arm, or how does that vision system work, Mitch?
Today, it's a think of like a third party perspective. There's a camera that at the site somebody could mount anywhere that's optimal for them, and then we just do scene reconstruction to understand that the context of that scene. And then certainly because we designed the arm to be modular, so our end of arm tool interface is a standard interface that is used throughout the industry. So any end effector that conforms to that industry standard, they could mount that end effector onto our arm, and some of those end effectors do have integrated cameras.
Thanks, Mitch. Great question here from Jake, and one I know you both spent a lot of time thinking about. How can Ally and Miso scale tens of thousands of QSRs?
Sorry.
Take that first, Mike.
Sorry.
Oh.
Difficult question. Sorry.
No, the reason it's there's no magic simple answer. Like the work before Miso, and I think it's mirrored at Ally for the years to come, is going to be maximizing our supply chain, our global supply chain, and manufacturing as many as we possibly can to meet market demand. It's a good problem to have, but it's a problem nonetheless. The capacity for manufacturing in this world for us is gated by a lot of things. One of them is robotic arms. You can go next, Mitch. But the numbers that are possible in terms of what can be produced for both the twills and fry stations as well as individual robot arms, it's the capacity for manufacturing is actually quite high in this kind of global manufacturing economy. There's a lot of capacity, and no matter which way you slice it, it ends up developing into quite a large company. Miso does, even if we're not able to satisfy a full demand.
Yeah.
There's so much demand we can satisfy with the supply chain that we've got set up for 2023 and 24 and beyond, that we're going to do just fine. Mitch?
I would replicate that same answer and put it to the context of Ally Robotics. And then I'd also say that, and I know Miso is doing this as well, is from an engineering standpoint, we're designing and creating this within an environment that there's supply chain constraints. So that gives us the optionality to select the right components that have greater robustness in the supply chain. So that means that we can get these components at the volumes we need to sell them and build and sell these units. And at Ally, we're making those trade-offs in that it's not just about qualifying a tier 1 supplier, but what about a tier 2 supplier and a secondary 2-tier supplier for each of our components? And then also what we're doing, and I know that Miso is also doing this, is we're looking at our overall bill of materials and how can we simplify our designs so that they are more serviceable, reliable, robust, and also less burden to manufacture.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mitch. Several questions here about patents and technology protection. Mitch, can you speak on what kind of IP you guys have?
So Ally Robotics is a hardware and a software company. We have applied for patents for a lot of the novel things that we've done. This spans from some of our algorithms to a lot of our hardware, because we've come up with things like novel joints and some unique solutions within our actuators. And so there's over 14 claims across our patents today. And maybe Mike, you want to speak about what Miso has?
Yeah, no, we're the same thing. A very, very robust patent portfolio. We're first movers in a lot of different areas of innovation, and so our patent strategy has us kind of going after big chunky patents that cover a lot of different functions. And we have upwards of 24 patents right now that are either filed, published, or granted. So yeah, it's kind of, I look at what Mitch is doing, and not only is it innovative and breakthrough, but the cool thing is it's largely heavily protected. The innovations are
really
by IP law.
Thanks. A question here from Teresa about the power supply needed to power robotic arms, and I'm also curious how that plays into Mike, your how you guys think about being able to install in as many different kinds of kitchen environments as possible. Mitch, what kind of power supply is needed to run the robotic arms?
I love this question because some of my kind of jobs I've done, I've spent a lot of times as operating as an electrician, and I've wired up 230-volt AC, I've wired up 110. A lot of the robotic arms today require that 230-volt AC, which is, you pay an electrician, you're $8,500 or more for that installation. The Ally arm, we're actually powered off of a standard 110 AC outlet. No special accommodations are needed, no electrician needed to power our arm.
Skip.
And Mike, in terms of the Flippy product line, what percentage of the power budget is allocated for the arm versus the other components of the fry station solution?
Yeah, so the arm is the single biggest expense in what we sell, and it's also one that's kind of more complicated. A lot of what consists of Flippy 2 is fabricated frames, an overhead rail, some electronics, and cables and cameras. But the thing that's really special is the arm, and it's I can't quote a reliable percentage off the top of my head, but it is the single largest expense in our bill of materials.
Interesting.
Thanks,
That's
Mike.
both from a cost of goods, and also I think the question was also talking about power draw, similar with power draw. Biggest power draw item in the whole solution as well. Yeah,
it is that as well. Yes.
Got it. Thanks. Eric wants to know about the safety controls for both of Ally and Miso. These are collaborative robotic solutions. How do we think about safety? What kind of systems do we have in place?
Do you want to talk about that one first, Mike?
Yeah, so there's robot zone and human zone, and they're separated by barriers and kind of light walls and safety switches so that they don't intermingle. So in practice, we've had no issues whatsoever. We clearly make the fry station safer after we put a robotic barrier and station over it.
And in general, as a robotic OEM, we will certainly comply to all safety, regulations. Specifically, one of them being R1506 Part 1. And then I know Miso also complies to the Part 2 regulation.
Cool.
Thanks, Mitch. A question here from Jake. How does Ally propose to spend their investment funds?
The majority of those funds are spent towards just
one of my questions.
It takes time and energy from brilliant people to design these systems. So the majority of it just goes to operational expense of paying people salaries.
Mm-hmm.
The other aspect goes into procuring prototype material and building, testing those materials, and then also setting up our test stations, test stands, all of our quality systems, etc., to make sure that we're producing a arm that what we say it actually is off of our line, as well as helping to support all of the maintenance, warranty, and support services that go along with having a product in the field.
Cool.
Thanks. This is a question, I think, more about the Flippy product line. Lyle wants to know, regarding restaurants and cooking food, humans have the advantage of sight and smell. They can tell when food is burning. Is there a fail-safe for the Flippy unit that can prevent food waste and ultimately overfeed restaurant owners?
Yeah, we absolutely improve food waste, but when you talk about the advantage that humans have in kind of food preparation versus robots, if you step back and look at it like a fast food operation, there are certain tasks humans are innately better at, dealing with other humans, creativity based, including food, including inventing food, creating food, baking food, etc. Then there are tasks that the human senses don't help at all. There are tasks that are completely mechanical, repetitive, mundane, and they don't change, and they don't call upon the creativity of a human being or even the senses that exist in the human body. The easiest example is standing over a fry station. You're taking a basket and you're receiving frozen food in one end, putting the basket through hot oil and dispensing cook food at the other end. So that humans are really happy to let a robot take over that task for very obvious reasons. Now, if the human then gets to go do things like interact with other humans, humans are generally delighted for that change, because it's pretty easy when you kind of look at tasks. I think we could all look at certain tasks and largely agree what is a good use of a human being or a human body, and what is really better purpose. That's machine work. And we don't intend to intrude on anything that we think that is where humans are innately better at. What we want to do is really create robots that are friends of humans by taking over the tasks that humans don't want.
Well
Thanks,
said.
Mike. Agreed. Okay, a little bit of a challenging question here, also for Mike. What are the features or competitive advantages a competitor to Ally could offer to steal business away from Ally for the Miso product line?
Just candidly, the list is so long in terms of like, okay, we were looking at this yesterday. Mitch and I was like, there might be 14 bullet points. Like, these are the compelling advantages that Ally's bringing Miso. The short answer is someone's going to have to bring a bigger list. If they just hit 2 or 3 of those things, or because when they all add up, serviceability, scalability of manufacturing, programmability, the consolidation of the power box, the control box, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, ease of programmability. It's going to be hard for anyone to say, for the next several years, we've created something that does more. There simply isn't more on the list that I can think of anyway. And look, and I don't think this kind of business is what they're developing at Ally is not prone to commoditization. It's not going to be knocked off by just simply a lower cost manufacturer. And the reason is the technology and the software and the intelligence that drive it. That's 50% of what is being created. And so, and that can't be knocked off easily by China or some country that could simply undercut the hardware. So I know that sounds a little contrived, but I'm just kidding. My candid answer is they're going to be really hard to supplant at LIS.
Thanks, Mike. Question here from Vincenzo. When is Ally projected to roll out its first robotic arms with Miso and inside of a restaurant?
So I'll answer it in part, and I'll let Mike take the other side of it. Ally intends to have 200 robotic arms produced by end of calendar year 2023, and that'll be kind of a rolling throughout the Q4 phase of next year. At that point, it's with Miso to work on deployment schedules.
Yeah, we would intend to put those directly in the restaurants. And the reason is we would be working through the final QA phase in lockstep with Ally, the final stages. So when they release to come from manufacturing, we'll drop those things in restaurants right away.
Cool. Thanks. Purang wants to know, this is about the Ally's trainability and simple ease of use. All the unique tasks that a customer trains an Ally robotic arm to do and save to be reused later, are they stored in some kind of central repository? Or are they only saved on the memory locally on the robotic arm?
Yeah, this is where I want to we want to empower people to use the arm in ways they want to use it. So imagine there's different layers of features that you can opt into. So if you wanted your Ally arm to be deployed in isolation at whatever site you want it, and you're the only trainer, that's great. We can support that model. If you want to leverage the behavior marketplace that the other users that have opted into that, and then instead of you having to train the arm to say, grab a drink cup, that little grasping actuation, you can just grab it from the marketplace. Great, you can do that. So it's really up to the end user on how they want to use our systems that we're creating.
Thanks. There's been several questions.
A marketplace of actions. That's a really good idea.
Earlier, but I'm going to resurface this question from Mitchell here. Is there a hard line dividing the two companies so that they don't compete against one another? Miso has
That's
customers
interesting.
in the restaurant industry. Ally recently announced they're working with a boba drinks company. So can you guys further iterate like what's separating Miso and Ally, and what do you share resources or management? Those kind of questions that are very common here in the chat.
So that's questions directed to me. So first, we, like Mike said, two totally separate companies. We don't share resources. I have my own team. Mike has his own team. What if you are looking for some type of food automation scenario to go and improve that, please go talk to me. So they're an excellent company. They will help you figure out the best way to do that. They're brilliant people. If you are looking for a robotic arm and a set of technology that you in and of itself are an entity that is acting as a robotics integrator, then you could come talk to us if you're outside of the food automation space.
Good answer.
In addition, we're about 1,200 miles apart too. Mitch is in Seattle, and I'm in Southern California.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. It's let's see. I'm trying to think if there's any specific things that I think Mitch, you handled those questions pretty well. Let's see. Okay. Several questions about profitability. And I know that's a tricky one for both companies, but
much later, I
can you
think.
speak about your projections for becoming a profitable company?
Joe, do you want me to take that first?
Go ahead. Yeah.
So in early stage companies that are facing very large market opportunity, it's quite common for the company to raise capital to invest in the growth opportunity in the years ahead, and to focus on profitability in a second phase. For tech companies, that's often around years 5 to 7, and that's a super rough generalization. There's exceptions all over the place. Either Mitch's company or my company could be profitable in a very short order if we stopped growing, if we stopped hiring engineers, if we stopped taking on new customers. And I think that's really just not the right answer. The right answer, I would assert to shareholders and potential shareholders, is to grow the value of the stock, to grow the value of the business. And to do that, turning to profitability too soon would sacrifice some of the scale opportunities that lie ahead of us. So Miso is in year 1 of our kind of commercialization phase, and we're looking at crossing lines of profitability sometime in the next 4 years, okay, potentially sooner. And so that for professional investors and institutional investors and retail investors, I think is logical, because in that time frame, we can gobble up thousands and thousands of customers. And if we were too focused on profitability, we can get to profitability, but we get them with hundreds of customers under our belt, not thousands. And so it's an important balancing act not to be reckless about and say, oh, you know, profitability is not a concern. It is absolutely a concern. It's just meant to be a timed concern.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Well said, Mike.
Great. A question here about the software agreements between Miso Robotics and Ally. Who owns the IP? What licensing agreements are in place? Are there any non-compete agreements in place?
I have part of that answer, Mike. You want to take the start off there?
Yeah, well, the technology's Ally's. That's their IP. They own it. And the agreement between Miso and Ally is when it's a manufacturing purchase agreement. We're a vendor. We're a customer. They're a vendor. Sorry.
And you can think of it as anything that comes in the box of the Ally arm. That's IP of Ally's. We own that. And then if for those on the call that understand software development, you'll have an interface between those things. So the rest of Flippy and the Ally arm, they talk through an interface that we've agreed upon.
Thanks, Mitch. Kevin's an Ally investor. He owns a manufacturing facility for construction products and is interested in being a customer.
Awesome.
How can he reach out to you?
Thank you first, and then super interested in that. Send an email to info@allyrobotics.com. and we'll happy to, jump on a call and hear what you're trying to solve.
Awesome. A lot of questions here about how they can invest, where they can learn more about investing, questions about the nature of equity crowdfunding. I just want to just respond to all those kind of questions and say, visit allyrobotics.com. This is where our current offering is being listed, and you can find out about how to invest and the nature of the investment product that's being offered. Several more questions here about the in-house, the domestic manufacturing. Mike, currently the components of the Flippy product line, are they manufactured in the US?
It's a mixed bag. So there are frames and things like that that are fabricated in the US. What companies like Miso and Ally are doing now is making long-term commitments with vendors that are securing supply chain right now, 6 to 9 months out. We're putting in our commitments for this time next year. And we're constantly working to develop new vendors and new second source and third source, parts and
I'm asking this for
so I got a
my
really
YouTube
big team and
viewers.
a really smart team, and they're just working on continuing to shore up supply chain. Supply chain problems for the next few years for us, there'll be annoyances. They will not be impediments. They will not stop our growth. They will not prevent our manufacturability. They will not prevent our scaling. What's happening in the world today is, a part that you spec that you like, cheaper and better, they're out of. So you got to go to the one that's a little more expensive and maybe not as good. There's a lot of that going on in the world of manufacturing today. There's also just a lot of very advanced planning. Like, okay, let's get our forecasts really tight and continue to tighten them and make some commitments now for years ahead. So I don't want the group to think that supply chain problems are an existential threat. They're not. They don't threaten the business's viability. They threaten its efficiency for the next few years.
And then from Ally's standpoint, because I know that there's often a lot of questions on this, just to be really clear, Ally will manufacture a robotic arm in the US. And we will source some components globally, except for China. And we are definitely leading into how can we reshore a lot of the manufacturing, even at the subsystem, subassembly levels.
Thanks, Mitch. Thanks, Mike. We're running out of time here. I just want to say before I ask this last question, thanks to everyone for submitting questions. And those that we weren't able to answer during this Q&A session, we will respond via email. And in addition, there were some questions about getting a recording of today's event. We're going to email that to everyone who registered shortly after the conclusion of today's event. And then this last question, Mitch, I wanted to throw your way before we sign off here is about the servicing of the Ally robotic arms.
Yeah.
Is that something that Ally is going to handle? And how does that work with Miso, who also is going to be offering real-time maintenance and support?
Good question.
Yeah, so I'll speak generally, and then Mike can talk about a little bit about how we'll handle that with Miso. So in general, we've done a couple things. I want tools to just work. That comes from just me as a tradesman trying to use different tools that break on me. So it's about designing in a modular system that you can quick swap components. Like think of your drill motor and swapping out a battery when the battery goes dead. Think of other components like actuators, electronic enclosures. You could quick swap on our arm so that if it breaks,
Nice.
where we can monitor that and we can send you a new one before it actually breaks.
Nice.
The other thing too is that when we look at robotics as a service for Ally, for if somebody wants to, rent or lease one of our arms, we, as a part of that service, we will ensure that that arm is operating to the specifications that we commit to that person. And that means we would do the field support services, etc. With Miso, I'll let Mike kind of answer for Miso and how they set up their service.
We use third-party companies that already exist in this world. We train them to service and install robots, and it's frankly quite easier than you might expect. And there's just fleets of human beings with trucks and boots that are already servicing these restaurant locations, and we don't see any value in kind of recreating that. So we got a bunch of trained national and regional firms that handle installation and repair for us.
Mhm.
Hey, Justin, there's a number of questions here. Is it okay if I pick the final question for closing? I don't want to overstep my bounds. There's a whole bunch
For sure.
that have to do with investing, and I want to make something really clear to the group because it's important. So when a company like Miso is crowdfunded as well, we've had a number of crowd funds, capital raises that have been very, very effective. And so Ally's kind of following that with the Series A. It doesn't exclude institutional investors. So the fact that Ally said, let's go to retail investors and crowdfund, it's a really efficient source of capital. If we've, Miso's able to kind of help and say, this is, something, this is kind of how we've done it and how it's worked for us. So it is a strategy, but it doesn't exclude institutional investors. What's really important for everyone on this call to hear and understand is that there is absolutely no decision or assumption that there will be another opportunity for the general public to invest in Ally before Ally goes public, should it do so. This is a Series A that closes tomorrow. There may never be a Series B that's open to the public. There may never be another opportunity. No, there may very well be. But what the company intends to do is take the capital that's being raised right now and use that for a good long while to continue to grow. So if you're on the fence of investing in this, whether this is a good opportunity for you, you decide that it is a good opportunity for you, you should view this window as closing and finally closing tomorrow.
Fair enough.
Well said, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. That was my call to action is, hey, our
Invest,
round
yeah.
closes tomorrow.
I'm going to publish this
if you're on the
video soon
fence, reach out to us, but highly consider, investing.
so that give you guys the
You have till
opportunity.
midnight Pacific tomorrow night to invest.
Awesome. Thanks both. Thanks to you both for all the great information, and thanks for everyone for signing on. And looking forward to a really strong close.
Great.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch.
Stick around. I'm going to give my own comments as well. So it looks like they've raised 3 million, which is a strong first round, to be honest. So I'm just going to give some of my thoughts here. I thought I was really happy with that. I thought it was very illustrative and it helped to explain the relationship between the two companies, helped to explain the opportunity to invest in both companies. See if I can get a bit more light in here. 1 second. And I've invested in both these companies. I personally think it's a really good opportunity. I agree with them informing investors. This is a long-term play. If you think of Tesla, they didn't get to profitability for years, but now how many billions do they make every year? Yeah, okay, they have the occasional hiccup with cars. They're a very profitable company. And the same with the company I work for, Facebook, or I work for WhatsApp, part of the Meta group. And we weren't profitable for many years, and now how much profit do we make? And this is the way for a lot of growth companies. The first 5 or 10 years, they're developing a product, they're developing product market fit, and then they're rolling out, and they're using capital that they either earn or raise to scale, to go to go nationally if they're in a big country like the US, or multi-country if they're in Europe. And I don't doubt that Miso and Ally will become multinational companies. I think they've got very strong technology. They've got this really good multi-dimensional fit where they have AI and software engineers with hardware experts, with a core focus on restaurants for Miso and for Ally for the initial part, and then maybe construction and manufacturing for Ally. So I think it's amazing. The other thing that they talked about, or they briefly mentioned on that call, was a marketplace. I wonder if that's going to be part of their play in a couple of years, where if you're looking to buy an arm, and you can almost download the actions or something from a marketplace. I don't know if that was something that Mitch mentioned, or if that's something I imagined. But that would be so cool. Sign up to the Ally Robotics marketplace, and you can download like Pick and Pack, or you can download Solder, you can download Pick and Move, or you can download, make a burger or make some chips or whatever it might be. And you can almost tailor that a bit like you have for the Creative Cloud for Adobe. If you're a designer or a film editor or whatever, you can just subscribe to a monthly fee, and you get you get some packages. Maybe you could subscribe to an online package for the movements marketplace or something. I thought that sounded, I don't know if he said that or if I'm imagining that, but I thought that was could be fantastic. What else? I think it's important if you're interested in investing to invest, because you know, obviously everyone, if you're a retail investor, you know, you could be hampered by personal circumstances or whatever, but some people have cash in the bank. You know, as an active investor, I try to invest, you know, as much as I can. But if you have money on the fence and you like this and you believe in it, if you like their vision, check out my other videos on Ally Robotics. Check out my other videos on Miso. You can see what other companies they're looking to go with. The fastest way they're going to grow is to raise, you know, more capital quicker and deploy that capital in effective ways. I kind of believe that the two founders are smart enough. I mean, they're smart people. You can tell they're very smart, and they're going to be able to deploy capital in a very good and efficient way. And I honestly think that retail investors are going to be like a massive part of this. If they can get 50,000 retail investors to invest, you know, $2,000 every year, that's raising $100 million every year for them. You know, that's a lot of money. So, you know, if you're on the fence, then think about it. And I would say, it's not advice, it's just my opinion as an angel investor. I really like this company. I think they have strong potential, and I would suggest one of these companies to invest in, if not both. Both of the rounds I think are finishing within the next 2 days. I think they're a very good company, and they're obviously partnering with some of the biggest companies in the world. So it's really not I think it's not a matter of like if, it's now a matter of when. So I think they're going to be a big company. They're going to be highly profitable. You know, even just with 200 companies, you know, that's still a lot of money that they're going to be making. But I'm sure they're going to be rolling out to thousands of locations just in the US. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if in 5 years they have 10,000 locations. And you know, I can't even do the maths in my head about how much money that is. I've done some forecasts in the past, and the numbers just get crazy. And of course, if the numbers are big for Miso, and the biggest cost of the product that they're providing is the robotic arm, then Ally is going to do very well. Guys, check out my other videos about Ally and Miso, and I've done some other videos about other robotics companies as well. Consider subscribing to my channel. It's really for these moments that it really is so important that you are an active subscriber, that you hit the bell notification icon, because sometimes there just isn't that much time left to invest. And as Mike has mentioned, sometimes it might be the last opportunity to invest. You know, if these companies do find innovative ways to roll out their products and start generating revenue, there might not be another chance to invest. It might take a number of years. I'm not saying that because I think that's going to happen. It may or may not happen. But the other good thing about that I can mention about investing early is when you invest early, you could end up with an enormous amount of shares. I mean, I invested only, I think, 1,000 in Miso Robotics, and they did a split from 7 to 1. And now I think I might have had thousands of shares in Miso Robotics, and I think it's worth tens of thousands now. And you know, if you're a small investor and you've only got $1,000 or £1,000 to invest, it could still be worth quite a lot in when you invest in growth companies and in angel investments. I'm not saying it's definitely going to work out, but I've invested in it. I like it. And I'm saying the risk stays the same. You know, if a company is not going to do well, they're not going to do well, you know, or if they're going to go bust, they could go bust in year 3, in year 5, in year 10, but the upside is reduced. If you invest early, you capture that upside, but the downside risk is always the same, right? So that's why I personally favor, and I've learned in my angel investing career, that investing early is always best. There's higher risk, you know, you might think there's higher risk, but look how far Ally have really come in 9 months, you know, creating, you know, mimicry within robotics, lowering the weight of the product, understanding the differences, hiring a good team, being able to raise 3 million in the first round. You know, I think it's amazing. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Check out my other videos on robotics, or if you want to learn more about angel investing, check out my playlist on investing in startups. If you got any questions or queries or comments, let me know in the comment section below. If you're an investor in any of these companies, or indeed if I've helped you, convince you in a way, or supported your decision in making an investment, let me know in the comment section below as well. Love to hear back from my community. And if you're thinking you want to support the channel in any way, there's some easy ways to do that. You can smash the like button, invest in the like button. So the like button goes blue, subscribe, hit the bell notification icon button. That always helps. And I'm going to probably be having some links in the description where you can support the channel as well. I'm thinking of creating a Discord community at some point very soon so that we can chat about this and we can exchange ideas in the Discord community in a private server, as well as, of course, in the comment section below. Guys, if you think I'm providing value in these videos and you think that somebody needs to hear this, we're in a high inflationary market, and who knows what's going to happen with the public markets, the stock market, etc. But these are private markets where you invest and you don't have to worry about it. You can kind of just watch update videos that I produce or read the emails from the companies, and you can kind of relax for a couple of years until the next raise where you can invest again, and there's a lot less pressure. But there is high inflation, and I do think if you've got cash in the bank, it is good to invest it in assets that can grow, that can create cash flows for one, that you can sell on in the future. And I'm a big advocate of investing and not just having cash in the bank. That's just my approach. Anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, smash the like button, subscribe. Remember that knowledge is power, especially the right kind of knowledge, and progress is everything. I'll see you guys in the next upcoming video. Check it out. I'm sure they're going to help you in your journey.